Commander Jake Sullivan stood on the bridge of the UES Aurora watching the stars through the main view screen. The encrypted message had arrived 3 hours ago, and he had read it 5 times already. The words were simple, but the meaning was huge. All human ships and colonies were to withdraw from Council space immediately. No explanations were to be given. No goodbyes were to be said. After 40 years of working with the Galactic Council, humanity was leaving. Jake looked at his crew. They had all received the same message. Lieutenant Mary Kim was at the navigation station preparing jump coordinates to human space. Engineer Bob Martinez was shutting down all shared systems that connected them to the Council networks. Communications. Officer Nancy Walsh had already begun the process of wiping all Council diplomatic codes from their computers. Nobody spoke much. They all knew what this meant. The Aurora had been stationed at the Proxima defense platform for 3 years. They worked alongside Vraxian and Zephyrian ships to protect the trade routes. Jake had shared meals with Captain Zethkar of the Vraxian fleet. They had talked about their families and their hopes for peace in the galaxy. Now Jake was supposed to leave without saying a word. At the same time, similar scenes were happening across the galaxy. Dr. Lisa Grant was packing her research at the Kepler Science Station. She had spent 5 years working on a cure for the Centauri plague alongside alien scientists. Her research was almost complete. The breakthrough was maybe weeks away. But the orders were clear. She deleted all her files and prepared to leave. Her alien colleagues would wake up tomorrow to find empty labs and no explanations on the mining platform. Asteroid Base 7 Captain Ryan Davis was overseeing the shutdown of human operations. The humans had been managing the extraction process for the entire sector. They had increased productivity by 60% and reduced accidents to almost zero. The alien miners depended on human systems and human knowledge. Ryan felt sick as he watched his teams pack up their equipment. The aliens would try to continue the work, but they did not understand the complex systems the humans had built. President Helen Morrison sat in her office on Earth reading reports from across human space. Every human colony, ship, and research station was reporting a successful extraction. The plan had been in motion for 2 years. Slowly and quietly, humans had been preparing for this day. They had moved critical resources. They had copied important data. They had identified which alien systems would fail without human support. The aliens had no idea how much they depended on human knowledge and human work. The decision to leave had not been easy. For decades, humans had tried to be good partners in the Galactic Council. They had shared their technology freely. They had solved problems across dozens of worlds. They had fought alongside alien species against pirates and rebels. But the aliens had never treated humans as equals. They saw humans as useful servants. They took human help for granted. They made decisions about human colonies without asking human opinion. Helen remembered the final meeting that had made the decision clear. The Council had voted to restrict human expansion to 3 star systems. They said humans were too aggressive and needed to be controlled. At the same time, they expected humans to continue protecting alien trade routes and solving alien problems. That was when Helen knew the partnership was over. Ambassador Zethkar was having his morning meal when his aide brought him the news. The human embassy was empty. All human staff had vanished during the night. Security recordings showed them leaving in small groups, but no one had said anything about departing. Zethkar rushed to the embassy building. The doors were unlocked, but inside was nothing. All equipment was gone. All files were deleted. The only thing left was a small note on the main desk. The note was from Ambassador Carol White, who had worked with Zethkar for 8 years. It said simply, "We gave you everything. You gave us nothing but contempt. Goodbye." Zethkar read the note 3 times before he understood what was happening. Similar discoveries were being made across Council space. Human diplomatic missions were empty. Human trade representatives had vanished. Human military advisors were gone. The humans had pulled out of every joint operation and every shared project. They had done it so quietly that most aliens did not notice until the next day. Dr. Emma Clark had been working on advanced medical treatments that could save millions of lives. Her research lab was empty. The alien doctors who worked with her found only blank computers and empty shelves. Years of research had vanished overnight. Colonel Ben Harper had been the main strategist for Council defense operations. His office was cleared out. The defense plans he had written were gone. The alien military commanders suddenly realized they did not understand their own defense systems. Ben had been the one who made everything work together. Jake Sullivan watched the last human transport ship jump away from Proxima Station. The Aurora was the final human vessel to leave. As they prepared to jump to hyperspace, Jake opened a communication channel to the entire sector. Every alien ship and station would hear his message. "This is Commander Jake Sullivan of the UES Aurora," he said. "For 40 years humanity has served alongside you. We have bled for your causes, we have died for your protection. We have given you our knowledge and our friendship. In return, you have treated us as servants and children. You have restricted our growth while demanding our service. Today that ends." Jake paused and looked at his crew. They all nodded. This was the right thing to do. "We are withdrawing from all Council territories and operations. We will not be back. When you realize what you have lost, do not come looking for us. The humans are done with the Galactic Council." The transmission ended and the Aurora jumped to hyperspace. Behind them, the Proxima defense platform began to experience system failures, without human technicians to maintain the complex networks. The station started to break down, but Jake and his crew did not look back. They were going home, and they were never coming back to Council Space. President Morrison sent the final message to all Council worlds. It was broadcast on every frequency and translated into every language. The message was short but clear. "When you realize what you have lost, do not come looking for us. The debt is paid. Goodbye." 3 months had passed since the humans vanished, and Ambassador Zethkar was starting to understand the scale of the problem. He sat in his office looking at reports from across Council space. Every sector was reporting difficulties. Systems were failing, trade was slowing down. Problems that had been solved for years were coming back. The first major issue was at the Titan mining complex. Without Captain Ryan Davis and his human team, the mining operation was falling apart. The alien workers tried to maintain the systems, but they did not understand how everything connected. Production had dropped by 60%. Equipment broke down daily. 3 miners had died in accidents that the human safety systems would have prevented. Supervisor Kickstell called an emergency meeting with the remaining staff. He had worked with humans for 15 years but had never paid attention to what they actually did. Now he was trying to understand systems that seemed impossible to operate. The human computers used logic patterns that made no sense to alien minds. The maintenance schedules were written in human code that nobody could translate. "How did they make this look so easy?" Kickstell asked his chief engineer. But the engineer had no answer. They had all assumed the humans were just following alien designs. Now they realized the humans had rebuilt everything from the ground up. The mining complex was essentially a human creation that aliens had been allowed to use. Dr. Emma Clark had been working on medical research at the Central Science Institute. Her alien colleagues tried to continue her work but discovered they could not understand her methods. The human approach to medicine was completely different from alien practices. Emma had been developing treatments that could cure diseases across multiple species. Her research notes were written in human, scientific language that the alien doctors could not decode. Dr. Velmer had worked alongside Emma for 3 years. He thought he understood her research, but when he tried to replicate her experiments, everything failed. The human laboratory equipment was designed around human thinking patterns. The chemical formulas used human mathematical concepts. Without Emma to explain the process, the research was worthless. Meanwhile, the Zephyrian trade routes were becoming dangerous. Captain Rick Stone had been responsible for patrol duties in the outer sectors. His human squadron had kept pirates away from merchant ships. Now the trade convoys were traveling without protection. In 3 months, 12 ships had been attacked and destroyed. The losses were costing billions of credits. Admiral Kekstar tried to replace the human patrols with alien ships but quickly discovered the problem. The humans had not just been flying random patrol routes. They had developed a complex system based on pirate behavior patterns and trade schedules. They knew exactly when and where to position their ships for maximum protection. The alien commanders had no idea how the humans had made their decisions. The pirate attacks were getting worse because the pirates also understood what had happened. Captain Scarix of the notorious Red Blade fleet sent a message to all merchant ships in the sector. "The humans are gone," the message said. "Your protectors have abandoned you? Pay tribute or be destroyed." The pirates knew the aliens could not replace human tactical thinking. Engineer Bob Martinez had been maintaining the power grid for the Centauri colony network. The network supplied energy to 47 worlds and 300 space stations. Bob had designed automated systems that balanced power loads and prevented overloads. 3 months after he left, the network was experiencing daily failures. Chief Engineer Zanhai was responsible for keeping the network running, but he did not understand the human control systems. The computers made decisions using human algorithms. When problems occurred, the system tried to fix itself using human logic patterns. Zanhai could see what was happening, but he could not predict or control it. Power outages were affecting millions of people across the network. Dr. Sam Williams had been researching bacterial infections that affected multiple alien species. His work at the Biological Research Center had been preventing disease outbreaks. Across the galaxy, the alien researchers had taken his vaccines and treatments, but they had never learned how to make them. Now the supply of human medicines was running out and new diseases were starting to spread. Dr. Tixnell tried to recreate Sam's vaccines, but the process was incredibly complex. The humans used biological engineering techniques that were completely foreign to alien science. Sam had been manipulating genetic codes in ways that seemed impossible. Without his knowledge, the alien researchers were helpless against diseases that Sam had easily controlled. The worst discovery came from the financial trading center. Nancy Brooks had been managing economic systems across 18 sectors. She had created algorithms that prevented market crashes and maintained stable currency exchange rates. The alien economists had thought these were standard trading programs. They were wrong. Nancy had built economic models based on human psychology and mathematics. The systems predicted market behavior by analyzing millions of variables simultaneously. When the aliens tried to operate the programs without Nancy, the entire economic network started to collapse. Currency values fluctuated wildly, trade agreements failed. Several smaller alien governments faced bankruptcy. Financial Minister Daxero held emergency meetings with economic advisors from across the council. None of them could explain how Nancy's systems worked. The human economic models were based on concepts that alien minds found difficult to understand. They had been using human financial tools without realizing how advanced and complex they were. Communication networks were also failing. Lieutenant Mary Kim had been coordinating data transmission between hundreds of star systems. Her routing algorithms ensured that messages traveled efficiently across the galaxy. Without her oversight, the communication network was slowing down, and messages were being lost. The aliens discovered that human communication systems used compression techniques and routing protocols that were far more advanced than their own technology. Mary had essentially created a galaxy-wide internet that worked better than anything the aliens had built. Now the network was degrading rapidly without human maintenance. Colonel Ben Harper's absence was felt in the military sector. The Council Defense Force tried to respond to a rebellion in the Outer Rim territories, but their tactics failed completely. Ben had written all the strategic plans and trained all the commanders. Without his leadership, the alien military was ineffective. Against even small threats, General Morek led the campaign against the rebels, but suffered defeat after defeat. He realized that Ben had not just been an advisor. Ben had been the actual strategic mind behind every successful Council military operation. The aliens had been following human plans without understanding the thinking behind them. As reports poured in from across Council space, the truth became clear. Humans had not been junior partners in the galactic community. They had been the engineers keeping everything running. They had rebuilt alien systems to work better. They had solved problems that aliens could not solve. They had been the invisible force that made galactic civilization possible. Ambassador Zethkar sat in his empty office reading the reports. The humans had been gone for only 3 months, but already the Council was facing economic collapse, military defeat, and technological failure. He finally understood what the human message had meant. They had given everything and received nothing but contempt. Now the aliens were learning the true cost of losing human cooperation. 6 months after the human exodus, the galaxy was bleeding, and Ambassador Zethkar could see the wounds getting deeper every day. The problems that had started as small cracks were now massive failures threatening the entire structure of galactic civilization. What had begun as inconveniences were now catastrophes that killed thousands of people daily. The Corven Syndicate had been a minor criminal organization when humans were still present. Captain Rick Stone and his patrol fleets had kept them contained to 3-star systems. Now the Syndicate controlled 15 systems and was expanding rapidly. Their leader, Boss Crevan, had declared himself ruler of the Outer Rim territories and was demanding tribute from all passing ships. Admiral Kekstar tried to stop the Syndicate expansion, but his fleets were no match for the criminal organization. The Syndicate had learned to exploit the weaknesses in alien military thinking. They attacked supply lines that aliens thought were safe. They used tactics that confused alien commanders. They struck at multiple targets simultaneously while alien forces tried to defend everything at once. The worst part was that the Syndicate had captured several former human installations. These bases had advanced weapon systems and defensive networks that the humans had built. The criminals could not operate these systems properly, but they were learning. Every month they became more dangerous as they figured out how to use human technology for their own purposes. Trade routes that had been safe for decades were now killing zones. Merchant Captain Yeldai had been shipping goods through the Centauri corridor for 20 years. The route had always been protected by human patrols. Now his ships traveled with heavy escorts and still suffered regular attacks. 3 of his vessels had been destroyed in the past month. The insurance companies were refusing to cover ships traveling through former human patrol areas. The economic damage was spreading across the galaxy like a plague. Without safe trade routes, the cost of shipping goods had increased by 300%. Colonies that depended on imported food were facing starvation. Industrial worlds could not get raw materials. The economic networks that Nancy Brooks had maintained were collapsing as fear replaced confidence. Financial markets were crashing daily. Currency exchange rates changed so rapidly that traders could not keep up. Several alien governments had declared bankruptcy. The Zephyrian Republic was printing money so fast that their currency became worthless without human economic models. To provide stability, the galactic economy was entering a death spiral. Dr. Sam Williams' medical research was desperately needed as diseases spread across Council space. The Centauri plague that he had been close to curing was now infecting 12 different species. The alien doctors tried to use his old treatments, but the disease had mutated. They needed new vaccines and treatments, but they could not understand Sam's research methods. Dr. Tixnell watched helplessly as patients died in hospitals across the Centauri system. The plague was spreading faster than they could treat it. Millions of aliens were getting sick, and the alien medical system could not cope. The treatments that Sam had developed were running out, and nobody knew how to make more. The plague was not the only medical crisis. Without human oversight, the biological containment systems on research stations were failing. Dangerous organisms that had been safely stored were escaping. 3 research facilities had to be abandoned when alien scientists could not control the organisms that human researchers had easily managed. Engineer Bob Martinez had maintained power systems across hundreds of worlds. His automated networks had prevented blackouts and system failures. Now power grids were collapsing regularly. The Vraxian homeworld experienced a complete power failure that lasted for 6 days. Hospitals lost life support systems. Transportation networks shut down. Thousands of people died in the darkness. The power failures were getting worse because alien engineers did not understand how human systems worked. They tried to fix problems, but often made them worse. The human computers, to control power distribution, were making decisions based on algorithms that alien minds could not follow. Every repair attempt seemed to create new problems. Water treatment plants were also failing. The humans had designed purification systems that provided clean water to billions of aliens. These systems used chemical processes and bacterial filters that alien engineers could not maintain. On 7 worlds, the water supply became contaminated, causing disease outbreaks that killed hundreds of thousands of people. Communication networks that Lieutenant Mary Kim had optimized were breaking down completely. Messages took weeks to travel between star systems that had been connected in real time. The galactic internet that humans had created was fragmenting into isolated networks. Worlds were losing contact with each other. Trade agreements could not be negotiated. Military coordination became impossible. The communication breakdown was having psychological effects on alien populations. Species that had been connected across the galaxy for decades suddenly felt isolated and alone. Social networks collapsed. Cultural exchange stopped. Fear and paranoia replaced the cooperation that human systems had made possible. Environmental disasters were spreading across terraformed worlds. Dr. Amy Foster had been managing atmospheric processors and climate control systems on 43 planets. These systems maintained the delicate balance that kept alien colonies habitable. Without human oversight, the systems were failing and entire worlds were becoming uninhabitable. The colony world, New Zephyr, was dying slowly as its atmosphere leaked into space. The atmospheric processors that Amy had designed were shutting down one by one. The alien colonists tried to repair the systems, but they did not understand the complex chemical reactions that maintained breathable air. 2 million Zephyrians faced evacuation from a world that was becoming a frozen wasteland. Similar disasters were happening across human terraformed worlds. Oceans were turning acidic. Weather patterns were becoming chaotic. Plant life was dying as soil chemistry changed. The aliens realized that terraforming was not a one-time process, but required constant human maintenance and adjustment. Military disasters were mounting as Colonel Ben Harper's absence became critical. The rebellion in the Outer Rim had spread to 8 systems. The rebel leader, General Vaxund, was using tactics that the Council forces could not counter. He attacked weak points that aliens did not know existed. He exploited supply line vulnerabilities that human strategists had always protected. The Council military had been designed around human strategic thinking. Ben had written the training manuals and planned the defense strategies. Without him, the alien commanders were fighting using outdated tactics against enemies who understood their weaknesses. Every major engagement resulted in Council defeats and thousands of alien casualties. Transportation systems were grinding to a halt across the galaxy. Human traffic controllers had managed the complex scheduling that allowed millions of ships to travel safely between star systems. The aliens tried to maintain the traffic control networks, but collisions and delays became common. Space lanes that had handled thousands of ships daily could now manage only hundreds. The breakdown in transportation was strangling the galactic economy. Goods could not be delivered on time. Passengers were stranded at spaceports for weeks. Emergency services could not reach disaster areas. The infrastructure that connected galactic civilization was crumbling without human management. Ambassador Zethkar received daily reports of new disasters and system failures. The galaxy that had functioned smoothly for decades was falling apart. In months, he finally understood the scope of human contributions to galactic civilization. They had not been employees or junior partners. They had been the foundation that everything else was built upon. As he watched news reports of plague outbreaks, economic collapse, and military defeats, Zethkar realized the terrible truth. The humans had not just left the galaxy. They had taken the galaxy's ability to function with them. The aliens were discovering that they had been living in a civilization that humans had built and maintained. Without human knowledge and human systems, that civilization was dying. The bleeding had begun, and it showed no signs of stopping. 1 year had passed since humanity vanished from Council space and the galaxy was dying. Ambassador Zethkar stood in what had once been the proudest chamber of galactic civilization and watched representatives from 12 species argue about problems they could not solve. The great council hall was half empty. 7 species had withdrawn from the galactic government after their economies collapsed. 3 more were on the verge of complete societal breakdown. The Vraxian Empire that Zethkar represented was facing the worst crisis in its 1,000-year history. Without human economic models, the Empire's financial system had imploded. Currency was worthless. Trade had stopped. Millions of Vraxians were starving as food distribution networks failed. The proud empire that had once controlled 40 star systems now struggled to maintain order on their home. World. Financial Minister Daxero presented his monthly report to the council, and the numbers were terrifying. Galactic trade had declined by 80%. Unemployment was above 50% in most systems. Tax revenues had disappeared as businesses closed and workers lost jobs. The economic networks that Nancy Brooks had maintained with such skill were now twisted wreckage that generated poverty instead of prosperity. The worst part was that the aliens finally understood how elegant the human economic system had been. Nancy had created financial models that automatically adjusted to prevent crashes and unemployment. Her algorithms had moved resources from areas of surplus to areas of need. She had balanced inflation and deflation across hundreds of worlds simultaneously. The system had been so smooth that aliens thought economics was simple. Without Nancy's guidance, alien economists were making decisions that created disasters. They printed money to solve unemployment and created massive inflation. They raised interest rates to control inflation and caused business failures. Every solution they tried made the problems worse. They were learning that economics was not about money but about understanding how millions of people made decisions. The Corvan Syndicate had grown into a major power that controlled 25 star systems. Boss Krevan had declared himself Emperor of the Outer Rim and was demanding recognition from the Council. His criminal organization had become more powerful than most legitimate governments. They controlled trade routes that generated billions of credits and tribute payments. Admiral Kekstar had tried repeatedly to destroy the Syndicate, but every military operation ended in failure. The criminals had learned to use human tactical concepts against alien forces. They struck multiple targets while alien commanders focused on single objectives. They used supply line attacks that aliens never anticipated. They employed psychological warfare that confused alien military thinking. The Syndicate was succeeding because they had captured former human military advisors who taught them human combat techniques. These humans had refused to leave with the Exodus and were now working for criminals. They understood both human and alien military thinking, which made them incredibly dangerous enemies. Several alien species had declared war on each other as the Council's diplomatic system collapsed. The hegemony of Kral was invading 3 neighboring systems. The Zephyrian Republic was fighting a civil war. The Centauri Federation had split into 12 independent worlds that raided each other's shipping. These wars were destroying what remained of galactic civilization. Without human diplomats to negotiate settlements, every dispute escalated to violence. The aliens had never learned to resolve conflicts peacefully. They had depended on human mediators who understood how to find compromise solutions that satisfied all parties. Ambassador Carol White had been the greatest diplomatic mind in the galaxy. She had prevented dozens of wars through patient negotiation and creative problem-solving. Her methods seemed like magic to alien diplomats who only understood force and intimidation. Now those alien diplomats were learning that diplomacy was an art that required human psychological insights. The medical crisis was becoming a catastrophe that threatened the survival of multiple species. The Centauri plague had spread to 36 worlds and was killing millions of aliens monthly. Dr. Sam Williams' research notes provided clues about potential treatments, but alien doctors could not understand his methodology well enough to develop new medicines. Dr. Tixnell had spent months trying to decode Sam's research, but human medical science, was completely different from alien approaches. Sam had studied diseases at the molecular level and designed treatments that attacked specific genetic weaknesses. Alien medicine focused on symptoms rather than causes. They could ease pain, but they could not cure diseases that Sam would have. Eliminated in weeks, the plague was not spreading randomly. It followed trade routes and communication networks that humans had established. The same systems that had connected galactic civilization were now carrying death across the galaxy. The disease was evolving rapidly as it encountered new alien species. Without human research capabilities, the plague might destroy entire civilizations. Environmental disasters were accelerating across terraformed worlds. Dr. Amy Foster had maintained atmospheric balance on 67 planets. Her systems had been so reliable that aliens forgot terraforming required constant attention. Now those worlds were experiencing climate collapse as delicate atmospheric chemistry went out of balance. The colony world Paradise had been a garden planet that supported 12 million aliens. Amy's atmospheric processors had maintained perfect weather patterns for 30 years. Now the planet was experiencing massive storms that destroyed cities and killed hundreds of thousands of people. The aliens could not understand the complex chemical reactions that had kept the atmosphere stable. Similar disasters were happening across human terraformed worlds. Desert planets were flooding as ice caps melted unexpectedly. Ocean worlds were freezing as atmospheric chemistry changed. Garden worlds were becoming toxic as industrial pollution overwhelmed natural systems. The aliens realized that humans had not just created habitable worlds but had maintained them through constant monitoring and adjustment. Infrastructure systems were collapsing across the galaxy. Power grids failed regularly, causing blackouts that lasted for days. Water treatment. Plants could not maintain clean supplies, causing disease outbreaks. Transportation networks were so unreliable that interstellar travel became dangerous and expensive. Engineer Bob Martinez had designed automated systems that maintained themselves through predictive maintenance and real-time adjustments. His computers had monitored millions of components simultaneously and replaced parts before they failed. The alien engineers who tried to maintain these systems were always reacting to problems. Instead of preventing them, the infrastructure failures were creating cascading disasters. When power systems failed, hospitals could not operate life support equipment. When water treatment failed, disease spread rapidly through alien populations. When transportation failed, food could not reach hungry colonies. Every system failure made other problems worse. Communication networks had fragmented so badly that many worlds were completely isolated. Lieutenant Mary Kim had created elegant routing systems that automatically adjusted to equipment failures and traffic patterns. Without her oversight, messages were lost regularly. Important communications were delayed for weeks. Emergency calls for help never reached their destinations. The communication breakdown was destroying social connections between alien worlds. Cultural exchange stopped. Scientific cooperation ended. Trade negotiations became impossible. The galaxy that had been unified through human communication networks was splitting into isolated fragments that could barely interact with each other. Educational systems were failing as alien students could not understand human teaching methods. Human schools had produced scientists and engineers who solved complex problems with ease. Alien educational systems created graduates who could memorize facts but could not think creatively. The next generation of alien leaders was less capable than their parents. Research and development had essentially stopped without human scientists. Dr. Emma Clark had been developing breakthrough technologies that would have revolutionized alien civilization. Her research labs were empty and her projects were abandoned. The aliens were not just losing human knowledge but also losing their capacity to create new knowledge. Ambassador Zethkar received reports that some alien species were beginning to worship humans as gods. The collapse of galactic civilization was so complete that many aliens believed only divine intervention could have created the systems that humans had built. Religious movements were spreading across alien worlds, promising that humans would Return to save them. As Zethkar read the latest disaster reports, he realized the full scope of the catastrophe. The humans had not just been partners in galactic civilization. They had been the creators and maintainers of that civilization. The aliens had been living in a human-built world without understanding what humans had given them. The price of arrogance was being paid in blood across the galaxy. Millions were dying from plague, war, starvation, and infrastructure collapse. The debt that aliens owed to humanity was being settled through suffering and death. The galaxy was learning too late that treating humans as inferiors had been the greatest mistake in galactic history. The emergency session of the Galactic Council convened in a chamber that had once held representatives from 47 species. Today, only 18 species remained, and half of those were sending delegates by hologram because their governments lacked the resources for interstellar travel. Speaker Velthor looked across the nearly empty hall and felt the weight of civilizational collapse pressing down on his ancient shoulders. 2 years had passed since the humans vanished, and the galaxy was barely recognizable. Where once there had been thriving trade networks and peaceful cooperation, there was now warfare, disease, poverty, and death. The great experiment of galactic unity had crumbled without the human foundation that had made it possible. Ambassador Zethkar stood to address the council. His once proud Vraxian empire was now a collection of struggling worlds barely maintaining contact with each other. His report was brief because there was little good news to share. The Vraxian Empire formally requests that this council authorize immediate diplomatic contact with humanity. We need them back or we will all die. The statement that would have been unthinkable 3 years ago was now an obvious truth. Every species represented in the chamber faced extinction if current trends continued. The plague was spreading faster than ever. Wars were consuming entire star systems. Economic collapse had reduced most aliens to subsistence living. Infrastructure failures killed thousands daily. Speaker Velthor had prepared for this moment by studying every record of human presence in the galaxy. What he had learned terrified him. The humans had not just been contributors to galactic civilization. They had been the invisible architects who had redesigned every system to work better. Their departure had revealed that aliens had been living in a human-created world for decades without realizing it. The question before us, Velthor said, is not whether we need humanity to return. That question was answered by 2 years of disasters. The question is whether humanity will accept our request for their return and what price they will demand for saving us. The first problem was that nobody knew where humanity had gone. The human exodus had been planned with extraordinary care. Every human ship and colony had vanished simultaneously, leaving no trace of their destination. The few humans who had remained in council space claimed they had no knowledge of where their people had relocated. Admiral Kekstar reported that scout ships had searched hundreds of star systems looking for human colonies. They had found empty mining stations and abandoned research facilities, but no trace of current human presence. It is as if 40 billion humans simply disappeared from the galaxy, he said. Our sensors detect no human ships, no human communications, no human energy signatures anywhere in known space. The search for humanity had consumed enormous resources that the failing galactic economy could not afford. Dozens of search expeditions had been launched, but all had returned empty-handed. Some expeditions had never returned at all. The galaxy beyond council space was vast and dangerous. Humanity could be hiding anywhere among millions of unexplored. Star Systems. Dr. Tixnell presented the medical situation, which was becoming more desperate daily. The Centauri plague had now infected 42 worlds and was spreading to new species regularly. Without Dr. Sam Williams' research methodology, alien doctors were helpless to stop the disease. We estimate that 30% of the galactic population will be dead within 5 years if we cannot develop new treatments, he reported. The economic report from Financial Minister Daxero was equally grim. Galactic trade had essentially stopped functioning. Most currencies were worthless. Unemployment approached 90% in many systems. We are facing the complete collapse of industrial civilization, he said. Without Nancy Brooks' economic Models we cannot maintain the complex systems that support our populations. Environmental disasters were accelerating as terraformed worlds became uninhabitable. Paradise had been completely evacuated after its atmosphere became toxic. New Zephyr was freezing as its star's energy output declined without human adjustment of the stellar engineering systems. 12 worlds had been abandoned as their climates collapsed beyond alien ability to repair. Engineers on high reported that infrastructure systems were failing faster than they could be repaired. "We do not understand how human automated systems worked," he admitted. "Every time we attempt repairs, we create new problems. We are losing the technological foundation that supports our civilization." The military situation was catastrophic. The Corvin Syndicate now controlled 40 star systems and was expanding rapidly. Several alien species had surrendered to criminal rule rather than face continued warfare. Boss Krevan had declared himself emperor of half the galaxy and was demanding tribute from surviving governments. General Morek reported that Council military forces were ineffective against enemies who used human tactical methods. "Colonel Ben Harper's strategic thinking was the foundation of our military success," he said. "Without human military science, we cannot defend ourselves against pirates, rebels, or criminal organizations." Communication networks had degraded so badly that some worlds had lost contact with galactic civilization entirely. The elegant internet that Lieutenant Mary Kim had created was now a collection of isolated fragments. Important messages took months to travel between star systems. Emergency communications often never arrived at their destinations. The psychological impact of these failures was destroying alien societies. Species that had been confident members of a galactic community now felt isolated and afraid. Religious movements promising human salvation were spreading rapidly. Some aliens had begun building shrines to honor the departed humans. Others had declared humans to be divine beings who would return to judge the galaxy. Speaker Velther presented the Council's analysis of humanity's departure. A team of alien researchers had spent months studying human activities before the Exodus. What they discovered was shocking. The humans had been preparing to leave for at least 5 years, he reported. They had systematically identified every system that would fail without their presence. They had moved critical resources and backup personnel to locations we cannot find. The analysis revealed that humanity's exodus was not an angry reaction to a single insult. It was a carefully planned withdrawal that had been in preparation for years. The humans had quietly documented every slight, every dismissal, every example of alien arrogance. They had planned their departure to cause maximum disruption to alien civilization. General Luke Martinez had been secretly relocating human military assets for 3 years before the Exodus. Dr. Carl Peterson had been copying critical research data to hidden locations. Captain Carol White had been training human diplomats in covert operations. The entire human government had been preparing for the day when they would leave the galaxy forever. The most chilling discovery was a message found in the ruins of the human embassy on Proxima Station. The message was from President Helen Morrison and was dated 6 months before the Exodus. It read, "The aliens take our gifts and treat us as servants. They demand our knowledge but give us no respect. They expect our protection but restrict our growth. When we leave, they will learn the value of what they scorned." The message revealed that humanity had not left in anger but in calculated contempt. They had studied alien behavior and concluded that aliens were incapable of treating humans as equals. The Exodus was not a negotiating tactic but a final judgment. On alien civilization. Dr. Emma Clark's research logs provided the most devastating evidence of human planning. She had written, "The aliens see us as useful animals rather than intelligent partners. They cannot imagine that we might choose to leave because they cannot imagine that we have choices. When we go, they will discover that we were never their servants but their creators." The Council faced a terrible realization. Humanity was not hiding in the galaxy waiting for alien apologies. They had moved beyond the reach of alien civilization and had no intention of returning. The humans had written off the entire galactic community as a failed experiment in interspecies cooperation. As the emergency session continued, alien representatives presented desperate plans for finding humanity. Some suggested sending massive search fleets to explore unknown regions of space. Others proposed broadcasting messages offering unlimited concessions if humans would return. A few suggested launching military expeditions to force human cooperation. Speaker Velther listened to these proposals with growing despair. The aliens still did not understand what they had lost. They were still thinking like masters trying to recall useful servants. They could not grasp that humanity had evolved beyond alien civilization and had no need for alien approval or alien resources. The session ended with a unanimous vote to authorize any action necessary to contact humanity. But as the representatives departed, Zethkar remained in the empty chamber staring at the memorial wall that listed the great achievements of galactic civilization. Every achievement had been built on human knowledge and human labor. Without humans, the galaxy had no achievements left to remember. The final message from humanity was discovered 3 months later by a salvage crew exploring the abandoned human research station on Titan. The message was broadcast on all frequencies in every alien language. It was brief and final.